The stars over Outpost Kira were cold and distant, like the eyes of those who passed by without stopping. Ships landed, refueled, and left again. Traders argued over small profits. Mercenaries drank loudly inside shadowy halls. Nobody stayed long in this forgotten corner of the galaxy. Yet on the edge of the outpost, in a small house that seemed almost abandoned, a figure sat in silence. Her name was Rhina. Once her name carried weight across battlefields. She had been a commander of fleets, her voice sharp as a blade, her will strong enough to move armies. Now her voice was quiet and her body was broken. From the waist down, nothing answered her commands. Her people, who once saluted her with pride, had carried her to this lonely outpost and left her there. They had spoken soft words, calling it a place of rest, but she knew the truth. They had no place for a commander who could no longer stand. Rhina had been strong, fierce, and proud, but in their eyes she had become a burden. Her chair was made of simple wood and steel, crafted by the outpost's workers. It creaked when she moved, and the wheels squeaked on the stone floor. Her hands rested on the armrests, firm and tense as if they still remembered the weight of a sword or the smooth touch of a control board. She spent her days looking out the window at ships that came and went, her mind burning with the memory of battles she could no longer fight. The scars on her face told part of her story. A line ran down from her temple to her jaw, a mark from a plasma strike that had nearly ended her. Her golden eyes were sharp, but the light inside them dimmed more each day. She hated pity. Yet that was all she saw when people dared to glance at her. She was tired of it. Tired of silence. Tired of weakness. Tired of living while feeling half dead. One afternoon, the outpost grew noisy. A human ship had landed, small and patched with different metals. Its engines rattled like a beast with a cough. The locals laughed at it, calling it junk. But from the ship came a man, simple in appearance, his clothes stained with grease, his hands rough with work. His name was Morrow. Morrow was a mechanic, a wanderer who moved from port to port, fixing broken ships in exchange for food, fuel, or a place to sleep. He had no uniform, no noble rank, no badge of honor. To most, he was just another drifter who would stay a short while before leaving again. But when Morrow entered the market of Outpost Kira, his eyes did not wander to the glitter of weapons or rare goods. They moved steadily, studying the broken engines piled in corners, the half-dead machines waiting for repair, the sparks of forges where locals hammered scrap into tools. He asked no questions, but his hands itched for work. He rented a corner of a workshop, set down his bag of tools, and within hours was surrounded by curious onlookers. Machines others had given up on suddenly whirred back to life under his hands. A child's broken hover toy floated again, bringing laughter to the dusty market. A merchant's generator hummed with smooth power. Even the governor's personal transport, silent for months, rolled out of the hangar like new. Whispers spread about the human who could bring dead machines back to life. Some called it luck, some called it madness, but all agreed he was different. Rhina heard the whispers too. She ignored them at first. What use was a mechanic to someone whose own body refused to move? She told herself she had no interest in him. Yet as days passed, she noticed the sound of repair work outside, the rhythm of tools striking metal, the hum of engines rising again. It disturbed her silence. It made her remember days when noise meant life, when battlefields shook with the sound of her command. One evening she rolled her chair through the market, her cloak pulled around her to hide her thin legs. She hated moving among people, hated their stares, but something pulled her forward. She stopped near the workshop where Morrow worked. Morrow was bent over a broken droid, his hands black with oil. He hummed softly as he worked, his face calm, his eyes focused. He did not look up when Rhina approached. Unlike others, he did not freeze at the sight of her chair, did not let pity slip into his eyes. He only kept working until the droid's eyes lit with blue light, its head rising slowly as it powered on. The small crowd clapped, but Morrow only wiped his hands and gave the droid a pat, as if it were nothing. That was when his eyes met Rhina's. For a moment, neither spoke. The crowd moved away, leaving silence between them. Rhina waited for the usual look of pity. Instead, she saw something else. Curiosity. Respect. As if he saw not a broken woman, but someone still whole. "You are Rhina," he said simply, his voice even. She narrowed her eyes. "You know my name?" "Hard not to," he answered. "They whisper it everywhere." A commander once, yes, her jaw tightened. Once, no longer. Morrow studied her face, then her chair, then back to her eyes. Strange. You look alive to me. The words cut through her like a blade, not in pain, but in shock. Alive. She had not felt alive in months. She turned her chair away, her cloak brushing against the ground. You know nothing of me, human. Maybe not, Morrow said, returning to his tools. But I know broken things, and I know they can be made whole again. His words followed her as she rolled back to her house. That night, for the first time in months, Rhina could not sleep. She thought of her body, of her legs that would not move, of the silence her people had left her in, and she thought of the human mechanic, his calm voice, his steady eyes. The next day she sat again at her window, watching ships rise into the sky. Her hands gripped the armrests of her chair. For years she had commanded fleets, faced enemies who wanted her destroyed, and stood tall in the face of death. Yet one human's simple words had shaken her more than 1,000 battles. Alive. The days passed slowly on Outpost Kira. The sun burned hot during daylight and the night winds howled across the metal roofs. To most, life there was dull and predictable, but to Rhina, each day was heavier than the last. She woke, sat in her chair, watched ships come and go, and went to sleep with the same weight pressing on her chest. But after meeting the human mechanic, something inside her refused to stay quiet. His words had been simple, yet they circled in her mind like restless birds. Alive. Broken things can be made whole again. She told herself to forget him, to ignore the foolish optimism of a wandering repairman. Humans were known for stubbornness, for chasing impossible dreams. She had fought alongside them once in distant campaigns. She respected their courage, but she also remembered their recklessness. Still, she could not push his words away. The outpost market grew louder each day because of him. Merchants praised him. Children followed him. Even smugglers sought his help when their engines sputtered. Morrow never asked for much. Sometimes he accepted coins, sometimes food, sometimes only thanks. He worked with quiet focus, as if repairing broken machines was not just a task, but a calling. Rhina hated the thought, but curiosity pulled her back. She returned to the market again and again, keeping to the shadows, her cloak wrapped tightly around her shoulders. From there she watched him work. His hands were steady, his movements careful. He spoke little, yet when he did, his words carried weight. One evening, after most traders had gone, she approached. The workshop was nearly empty, only the glow of a lantern lighting the space. Morrow sat on the floor, wiping oil from his tools. You work too much, Rhina said. He looked up, surprised but not startled. A small smile touched his lips. Machines do not fix themselves. Besides, work keeps me alive. Rhina wheeled closer, the squeak of her chair loud in the quiet room. Alive. You like that word, don't you? Morrow studied her face before answering. I do. Too many forget what it means. For a moment silence stretched between them. Then Rhina said, You speak as if you see life where others see only ruins. That is exactly what I see, he replied. He placed a wrench on the floor and leaned back against the wall. Ruins can be rebuilt. Broken can be repaired. But only if someone tries. Her golden eyes narrowed. You speak of machines, not of people. Morrow's gaze did not waver. Both people break too. I have seen it. I have seen soldiers who lost limbs, pilots who lost sight, families who lost everything. Some gave up. Some kept going. The ones who kept going had someone who believed in them, someone who helped them stand again. That is the truth of it. His words struck her again, sharp and direct. She hated how much they moved her. She turned her chair slightly as if to leave. But he spoke once more. You are a commander, he said. I was, she corrected, her voice hard. You still are, he said calmly. You carry yourself like one. Even sitting in that chair, you look ready to lead an army. But your body betrayed you. That is all. The fire in your eyes did not die. Her breath caught. No one had spoken to her like that since the day she was carried from the battlefield. You speak boldly for a human mechanic, she said. Maybe, he admitted, but I see what others refuse to see. And I will say what they will not. She looked at him, torn between anger and curiosity. At last she asked, What do you want from me? He shook his head. Nothing. But I have an offer. Her hands tightened on the armrests. An offer. Morrow leaned forward, his voice steady. I can build you something. A new spine, steel wires and energy, stronger than what failed you. It will not be easy. It will not be safe. But it can be done. Rhina stared at him in silence. For a moment she thought she had misheard him. A human mechanic sitting in a dusty workshop, offering to replace her shattered body with steel. It sounded like madness. You speak as if you can undo the laws of flesh, she said coldly. Do you think yourself greater than the healers of my people? They tried. They failed. I am not greater, Morrow said, but I am different. Where they saw limits, I see possibilities. I do not have their knowledge of medicine, but I have something else. Human hands do not stop building when others say it cannot be done. She shook her head. You are a fool. Maybe, he agreed, unoffended. But a fool who tries can achieve more than a wise man who gives up. His calm confidence unsettled her. For months she had been surrounded by pity, by sorrowful looks and gentle words that tasted of lies. This man, this simple human mechanic, looked her in the eye and spoke as if she was still whole. You think you can build me a new life from scraps of metal? She asked, half mocking, half testing. Yes, he said without hesitation. His certainty made her chest tighten. She wanted to laugh, to dismiss him, but the sound caught in her throat. Instead, she whispered, why? Morrow's eyes softened. Because I see someone who was abandoned when she should have been honored. Because I believe broken does not mean finished, and because I can. Her breath trembled. She turned her chair sharply and rolled toward the door. You are mad, human. Maybe, he said again. But you will think about it. She left quickly, her cloak sweeping behind her, but his words followed her into the night. That evening, Rhina sat in her dark room, staring at her useless legs. She remembered the battlefield where she had fallen, the pain that had swallowed her, the faces of her soldiers as they carried her away. She remembered the silence of her people, the way they turned their backs. She had thought her story was over. Now a human offered her a chance to rise again. She hated herself for thinking about it. She hated the flicker of hope that stirred in her chest. But it would not die. Days passed. She avoided the workshop, yet her mind returned to it again and again. She saw Morrow's face in her thoughts, steady and unshaken. She heard his voice, firm and calm. Broken can be repaired. Finally, one night she wheeled herself back to the market. The stalls were empty, the streets quiet. She found him still working by lantern light, bending over a half-built engine. He looked up as she entered, and this time she spoke first. You said you could build me a new spine, she said. Her voice was sharp, but beneath it trembled something else. Yes, Morrow answered simply. She stared at him, her golden eyes glowing in the lantern light. Show me how. Morrow nodded slowly as if he had expected these words. He stood, wiped his hands, and opened a box at the side of the workshop. Inside lay pieces of metal, wires, and energy cells. He began to explain, not with fancy words, but with simple ones. He spoke of how metal could carry strength, how wires could carry signals, how energy could flow like blood. Rhina listened, silent but focused. She did not understand all of it, but she understood his conviction. He spoke not as a dreamer, but as a builder. When he finished, he looked at her and said, It will be painful. It will take time. But if you let me, I will make you stand again. Her hands shook on the armrests. She wanted to deny him, to call him insane once more. Yet deep inside she wanted to believe. For the first time in months she felt the weight of choice pressing on her. The silence of despair had been broken. Before her stood a path, uncertain and dangerous, but alive with possibility. She whispered almost to herself, Alive. Morrow nodded. Yes, alive. The first rays of dawn stretched across Outpost Kira, touching every roof with pale light. The streets were quiet except for the occasional clang of a hammer or the hum of a generator. Rhina had not slept. She had rolled her chair to the edge of the cliff that overlooked the landing pads, watching the stars fade and the first ships rise. The thought of what she had agreed to with Morrow filled her mind. A steel spine. Something no healer, no medic, no doctor of her people had ever dared to attempt. And yet here she was at the edge of change. Fear and hope mingled inside her, burning like coals. She did not know what awaited her, but she knew it would not be simple. Morrow's workshop was quiet when she arrived. The human was already awake, moving among his tools with precision. Oil stains marked his clothes, and his hands glimmered faintly with energy from last night's work. Around him, pieces of metal lay in neat piles, wires curled like snakes, and glowing cells hummed softly. Morning, he said without looking up. Ready? Rena wheeled closer. I do not know if I am. You are, he said simply. You will not believe it yet, but you are. Fear is only proof that you care. She studied him. There was no arrogance in his words, only certainty. Humans were strange creatures she had thought once, brave in their foolish ways. Now she saw it again. The quiet courage of one who believed he could touch the impossible. He led her to the center of the workshop. A chair had been fitted with straps, padding, and mechanical attachments. Marrow's hands hovered over it. This will hold you steady, he said. I will need you to trust me completely. Every motion, every response matters. Rina took a deep breath and nodded. I will try. Marrow smiled faintly. That is all I ask. He began by showing her the blueprint of the spine he intended to create. Metal vertebrae connected by flexible energy conduits would replace the bones she had lost. Sensors would link to her nervous system, translating thought into motion. Hydraulic supports and reinforced joints would give her strength beyond what flesh could carry. Rina's golden eyes widened. You are speaking of miracles. No, Marrow said. Just patience, skill, and will. All human traits, and some faith that broken things can rise again. The process began with careful measurement. He ran small probes along her body, mapping the nerve endings and the points where her muscles still retained strength. Rina winced at the gentle jabs, but she did not speak of pain. Her pride would not allow it. You must breathe evenly, Marrow instructed. Your body will need calm as we go forward. Hours passed. The sun rose higher, spilling light into the workshop. Marrow worked in silence, occasionally pausing to explain a detail. The language of machinery was strange to Rina, but she watched every movement, learning without understanding. She began to see patterns, connections, and the logic behind his work. By midday, the first vertebrae of the steel spine were ready. Marrow placed them on the table, their surfaces smooth, their design elegant. Strong, flexible, alive, he said. This is not just metal. It is a chance to stand again. Rina reached out hesitantly. She touched the cold surface, imagining it inside her body. A shiver ran through her. Fear and hope collided violently. Could she trust him? Could she trust herself to endure what was coming? You can do this, Marrow said softly. I have seen soldiers who fell. Some never rose, some did. They rose because someone believed in them. I believe in you. Her lips pressed together. Pride and shame fought inside her. She wanted to reject him, to walk away, to remain in her chair and in her despair. But a small voice inside whispered that this could be the first step toward life. The evening brought cooling winds, but the workshop glowed with energy. Marrow had assembled more of the spine, connecting wires, testing hydraulics, and fitting sensors. Each step was precise, each adjustment measured. He spoke little, but when he did, it was always gentle, encouraging, guiding. Trust your body, he said. It remembers more than you think. Even in brokenness, it knows life. Rina listened, gripping the armrests. She tried to imagine standing again, walking, moving with purpose. The thought seemed impossible, but she felt a flicker of something she had not felt in months. Anticipation. Night fell, and the outpost quieted further. Marrow worked by lantern light, the hum of energy cells filling the room. Rina could see fatigue in his eyes, yet he continued. She realized then that the human strength was not just in his hands, but in his will. He would not stop, and somehow she knew she could not stop either. He paused and looked at her. Tomorrow we begin the connection, he said. It will be difficult. Painful, maybe. But when we are done, you will feel alive in ways you have forgotten. Rina swallowed. She had forgotten how it felt to be alive. The battlefield, the command, the rush of movement. Those memories were fading like stars before dawn. But she wanted them back. She wanted life, even if it came through steel and energy rather than flesh. I am ready, she said finally. Marrow nodded, his expression calm but satisfied. Good, rest tonight. You will need your strength. Rina rolled back to her room, the workshop fading behind her. She could not sleep. Her mind was filled with images of metal vertebrae, glowing wires, and the strange hum of energy. Her chest tightened with both fear and excitement. Could she endure the process? She had faced enemies without hesitation, commanded fleets with courage, but this felt different. She remembered the battlefield again, the moment she had fallen. Pain had swallowed her world. Her soldiers had carried her away, and her people had left her to die slowly. That memory, once bitter and sharp, now felt like fuel. She would not be abandoned again. She would rise. The first rays of the next morning brought a sense of ceremony. Rena wheeled to the workshop, her hands firm on the armrests. Morrow was ready, his tools arranged, the spine connected to the chair waiting for her. "Today begins the journey," he said. "We move carefully. Every nerve, every muscle must learn again, trust me." "Trust yourself," she nodded, her jaw set. Fear was there, but it no longer ruled her. This was her choice, her life. Her chance to stand. The connection began slowly. Morrow fitted sensors along her back, connecting wires to the metal vertebrae. Small shocks and twinges ran through her body. She clenched her teeth but did not cry out. Her mind focused on each movement, each sensation. "You are stronger than you know," Morrow whispered. "Feel it, let it flow through you." Hours passed. Pain came in waves, each moment testing her will. She wanted to give up, to let despair reclaim her. But every time she thought it, she remembered the human before her. His calm eyes, his steady hands, his belief that broken things could rise. She could not let him fail her. She would endure. By afternoon, the first stage was complete. Rena felt movement again, slight but undeniable. The steel carried her weight, but it obeyed her mind. She flexed her legs tentatively, testing the connection. She could feel the hum of energy, the pulse of life through metal. Her chest rose and fell with astonishment. She had feared death in a way she never expected. Yet now she felt something she had forgotten: power, possibility, life. Morrow smiled faintly. "This is only the beginning," he said. "Tomorrow we build more strength. We teach your body to walk, to move, to rise." Rena nodded, tears gathering in her eyes. She had been abandoned, broken, forgotten. Yet here, in this workshop, a human had given her hope again. Not pity, not sympathy. Hope. The night fell and she rested, feeling the hum of the spine beneath her, the gentle warmth of energy pulsing through metal and flesh. She dreamed of standing, of walking, of leading again, and for the first time since her fall, she smiled. The sun rose slowly over Outpost Kira, painting the streets in shades of gold and red. The heat touched the metal roofs and the worn pavements, but it could not reach the quiet workshop at the edge of the outpost. Inside, lanterns glowed faintly, casting long shadows across the walls filled with tools, wires, and the scattered pieces of the human mechanics work. Rena sat in the specially designed chair, her body tense but alert. The steel spine ran along her back, connected to sensors and energy conduits that hummed softly, almost like a heartbeat. She could feel the energy flowing through her nerves, awakening muscles that had been silent for months. Fear lingered, but it was tempered by something stronger: determination. Morrow moved around her like a conductor with an orchestra. His hands were steady, his eyes calm, his voice gentle but firm. "Today we test your first steps," he said. "We move slowly. Every motion matters. Trust me and trust your body." Rena nodded. Her lips were tight, but inside her chest a small flame of hope burned. She had come this far. She had survived months of despair and abandonment. She would not falter now. Morrow adjusted the straps and checked the sensors one last time. "Ready?" he asked. "Yes," she replied, her voice quiet but steady. He pressed a small control, and a gentle hum surged through the steel spine. Rena felt warmth, a strange mix of metal and life pulsing through her body. Her legs, which had been lifeless for so long, twitched slightly. It was enough to make her gasp, but she did not look away. "Good," Morrow said softly. "Now lift yourself slowly." She gripped the armrest and tried to push her weight forward. The chair resisted slightly, but the steel inside her back held firm. She could feel the muscles reacting, the wires transmitting her thoughts into motion. Inch by inch, she leaned forward, feeling a sense of control she had not felt since the battlefield. Her legs flexed, weak but responsive. She lifted slightly and the chair rolled backward to support her. Pain flashed through her body, sharp and immediate, but she bit her lip and focused. She could do this. She had to, Morrow's voice guided her. "Shift your weight to the right, good. Now back to the center, steady, steady." Rena moved slowly, her body adjusting to the new rhythm. Each motion was a revelation. Every nerve she thought dead now carried signals, flowing through the steel and energy that Morrow had built. She could feel herself standing. Not fully yet, but on the edge of it. Hours passed. Sweat rolled down her forehead. Her arms ached and her legs trembled. But with every motion, she learned. She discovered how to balance her weight, how to trust the spine to carry her, how to command her own body again. Morrow never left her side. his hands ready to steady her if she faltered, his voice calm, encouraging, and steadying. By mid-afternoon, she was standing, supported only by the steel spine and her own will. The sensation was both thrilling and terrifying. She had forgotten what it meant to stand on her own, to feel the ground beneath her, to bear the weight of herself again. She had feared this day for months, yet it arrived with a strange beauty. Morrow watched her with quiet satisfaction. "You are doing well," he said. "Every step you take is yours, not mine. Not anyone else's, yours." Rhina's chest rose and fell rapidly. Her mind raced with memories of battles she had fought, of soldiers she had commanded, of moments when she had been fearless. And now, standing on her own, she felt a spark of that fearlessness return. She took a tentative step forward. The movement was awkward, unsteady, but it worked. Another step, then another. Pain shot through her legs, but she gritted her teeth and continued. The steel spine hummed, supporting her, responding to her thoughts, making the impossible feel possible. "You are walking," Morrow said, a small smile breaking across his face. "Do you feel it?" "I feel alive," Rhina whispered. The words surprised her. She had thought they were impossible, words she would never speak again. But now they came freely, carried on the rhythm of her steps and the power of the steel that had become part of her. The first steps were slow, each one carefully measured. But soon she found a rhythm. She moved forward with growing confidence, her posture straight, her eyes bright. She felt power in her legs, strength in her back, and control in her movements. It was not natural, but it was hers. Every motion was a triumph over the months of despair, over the abandonment, over the fear that she had lost her life. Morrow clapped softly. "You are doing more than I imagined," he said. "Keep going. Do not stop." She moved to the center of the workshop and stopped, breathing heavily, her legs trembling with effort. She looked at Morrow, her golden eyes wide with emotion. I did not think I could feel this again," she said. "You always could," he replied. "You just needed the right tools and someone to believe in you." Tears gathered in her eyes. For months she had hidden from pity, from sympathy, from the world that had abandoned her. But this human had shown her something different. He had given her hope without condescension, strength without expectation, and belief without judgment. The night fell, and the workshop glowed with energy. Rhina continued to practice, taking careful steps, leaning on the steel spine, testing her balance and control. Morrow adjusted the sensors and connections, fine-tuning the flow of energy, guiding her through each movement. Pain came and went, but it was accompanied by exhilaration, by the joy of motion, by the return of life she thought she had lost forever. By midnight, she was walking across the room with only minimal support from the chair, her steps more confident, her posture more upright. She laughed softly, a sound she had not heard herself make in months. It was a sound of triumph, of joy, of rediscovery. Morrow nodded. "Tomorrow we push further," he said. "We will strengthen the connections, teach your muscles to respond faster, and expand your range of motion. Soon you will move as if you never fell." Rhina looked at him, her heart full. "I will not let you down," she said. "You will not," he replied. "This is your journey, and you are the one who carries it." The following days passed in a blur of movement, adjustment, and learning. Rhina trained with the steel spine, each session bringing greater strength and confidence. She moved from walking to standing unaided, then to stepping over obstacles, then to lifting light weights and testing her endurance. The workshop became her arena, Morrow her coach, and the steel her body. Through it all, her mind grew sharper, her determination harder, and her spirit unbroken. She had been abandoned, paralyzed, and left to despair. Now she was rising again, stronger than she had ever been, fueled by human ingenuity and her own willpower. Finally, one evening she stood at the center of the workshop, the stars visible through the open roof. She flexed her legs, tested her balance, and moved with ease. She had taken the first step from brokenness to wholeness. She had awakened to a new life, one that combined flesh, will, and steel. Morrow watched her quietly. "You are ready," he said. "Not just to move, but to return to the world that left you behind." Rhina's golden eyes burned with emotion. She had been broken, abandoned, and paralyzed, but now she was alive, strong, and ready. The awakening was complete, and with it came the knowledge that nothing, not even despair, could hold her down again. Rhina stood at the edge of the hangar, her hand brushing the cool surface of the starfighter's wing. The ship had been repaired with the same care that Jorn had shown in every task, but now it felt different. It was not only a machine waiting to fly, it was a symbol of her return, and the steel spine in her body hummed with quiet strength as if eager for the test to come. The colony station trembled slightly as alarms began to sound. The raiders were back. Long-range sensors marked their approach, swift and merciless as ever. The people inside the station hurried through corridors, some rushing to defense turrets, others hiding in safe zones. Fear spread quickly, for everyone remembered how devastating the last attack had been. Rena did not tremble this time. She looked across the hangar where Joran stood, grease on his hands and sparks still fading from the tools he had dropped. He met her eyes and gave a single nod. He did not need to speak. His belief in her was steady as stone, and it filled her with a courage she had not known even in her days as a trained pilot. Climbing into the cockpit was no longer a painful struggle. Her body moved with new certainty. The steel spine guided her, not as a burden but as part of her. She settled into the seat, fingers brushing across controls she once thought she would never touch again. The starfighter came alive beneath her, lights glowing, engines warming with a deep vibration that made her heart race. The hangar doors opened, and she felt the pull of space beyond. Voices on the comm channel urged her to stay back, warning that she was not ready, that the raiders outnumbered them. She silenced the channel. She did not need permission. She needed the sky. The fighter launched forward, leaving the hangar in a streak of light. Stars stretched around her, and for the first time since her injury, she felt whole again. She was not trapped in a broken body. She was free, moving with speed and precision, her ship responding as if it shared her spirit. The raiders came into view, sleek ships painted with marks of plunder fanned across the void, weapons already heating. They expected another easy raid. They expected fear. What they saw instead was a single fighter rising to meet them, defiant and unshaken. Rena's hands moved with a rhythm that felt both old and new. Training from years past blended with the heightened clarity her steel spine provided. Every motion was sharp. Every calculation felt natural. Her ship rolled through the first barrage of fire, weaving between beams of light, then struck back with a burst of plasma that clipped an enemy wing. Sparks scattered in the darkness, and the raider spun helplessly before vanishing in flame. Inside the station, watchers on the screens gasped. The abandoned pilot they had pitied was now the shield of their colony. Children who had once looked away from her broken frame now stared wide-eyed at the courage unfolding before them. The raiders regrouped, circling to trap her. Their leader barked commands, confident numbers would crush her. But Rena no longer thought of weakness. She thought of Joran working through nights without rest, shaping metal into hope. She thought of every moment she had believed her story was over, only to find herself here, reborn. That memory gave her a fire no enemy could put out. She dived through the trap, engines flaring, and her fighter cut between the raider ships like a hawk through prey. Two more fell in quick bursts, their wrecks lighting the emptiness of space. Her movements were not reckless. They were precise, guided by calm determination. The steel in her back echoed the steel in her will. As the battle raged, Joran worked inside the hangar, feeding power to defense turrets and shouting orders to keep the station safe. He could not fight in space, but his hands and mind were part of Rena's strength. He knew that every strike she landed was also proof of their bond, proof of what humans could create when they refused to give up. Minutes stretched like hours. The raiders pressed harder, but Rena did not waver. Sweat lined her brow and her breath came heavy, yet her eyes stayed sharp. Every time she thought of slowing, she remembered lying broken in a bed, hearing the silence of abandonment. She refused to return to that silence. She fought not only for herself, but for every voice in the station that called this fragile colony home. At last, the raider leader found himself alone. His squadron lay scattered, their burning wrecks drifting through the void. He cursed in disbelief, unable to understand how a single pilot, thought useless and forgotten, had destroyed his strength. He tried to flee, engines roaring, but Rena chased him with relentless focus. The chase streaked across the stars, twisting through debris and broken satellites. The raider leader launched flares and mines, desperate to shake her. But she followed with unwavering precision. Her fighter locked onto his, and with one last strike, the battle ended in fire. Silence filled her ears, broken only by the hum of her own ship. The raiders were gone. The stars belonged to her again. Rena turned her fighter back toward the colony. The station looked small against the vast night, but lights blinked across its surface, shining with relief. She felt the weight of what had happened. She was not only flying again, she was protecting lives, carrying a story greater than herself. As she landed, the hangar erupted in cheers. People rushed to greet her, their fear replaced by awe. Children pointed at her with bright eyes, calling her a hero. For the first time since her injury, she stood tall without shame. She stepped from the cockpit, her steel spine supporting every movement, and the crowd parted to let her walk to Jorn. Jorn met her with a calm smile. He did not boast, nor did he claim credit. He simply placed a hand on her shoulder and said, "You flew." Rena nodded. Words failed her, but the truth was clear. He had given her the chance to rise again, and she had seized it with all her strength. From that day, her name spread beyond the colony. Traders carried the tale to distant systems, speaking of the human mechanic who built a spine of steel, and the pilot who turned despair into triumph. Across the stars, others who felt broken listened and found new courage. Rena continued to fly, not for pride but for duty. She defended the weak, stood against raiders, and showed that a body could be remade, but the human spirit was unbreakable and always. In the workshop where sparks lit the shadows, Jorn waited, ready to build again, ready to prove once more that when others abandon, humans restore, and when others surrender, humans rise. Together they carried that truth into the endless sky. Word count, 1605.